Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 61 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is roasted, stuffed mini peppers with ginger mushroom ragu. These colorful mini peppers make darn good eating when they've been filled with cheese and roasted. This preparation will call for your now well-developed delicate touch to fill the peppers with a compound cheese. You will also learn to make a mushroom ragu. Techniques today are chopping and slicing, grating, zesting and seasoning, making a compound cheese, using a pastry bag, roasting, sauteing mushrooms, deglazing and reducing, plating, and garnishing. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about the mise en place for lesson 61. First, we're going to need these mini sweet peppers. Now, the description calls for 12. That's 2 per person for 6 people. I'm only making for 2 tonight, so I have 4 peppers out. Pick whatever colors you want. They come in yellow, orange, and red. And I got these at Kroger, also known as Smith's. It's also known by other names. They come in a bag, and they're, you can say they're about 4 inches long. They're beautiful. Okay. All right, in addition to the peppers, we're going to need about a half a cup of a soft goat cheese at room temperature. We'll also need about a half a cup of fontina cheese that has been very finely shredded. And I'll show you the box grater that I used and the small holes. And then after I grated it, I even chopped it up a little bit. The reason is it's got to be small enough, fine enough that it can go through the piping bag. We'll need about a quarter of a cup of chopped red onion, about 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic. Oh, and by the way, the red onion and the garlic need to be very finely chopped because, again, they have to go through the tip of the piping bag also. We'll need kosher salt and a peppermill and some olive oil. We'll also need 2 cups of sliced mushrooms that have been sliced maybe about a quarter of an inch thick and then coarsely chopped, okay, because we're making a ragu. I don't want sliced mushrooms. I want to when we serve it, we're going to serve a little mound of mushrooms, okay, so we're going to coarsely chop those mushrooms. And these can be white mushrooms, they can be cremini mushrooms, they could be shiitake mushrooms, but they should be fresh mushrooms. We'll also need about 2 teaspoons of chopped ginger, very finely chopped, or you can grate it with a microplane grater. We'll also need 1 tablespoon of chopped shallots, about 1/3 of a cup of Canton ginger liqueur. This has a very gingery taste. It's a sweet liqueur. We need about 1/3 of a cup. I'm just going to eyeball that when we get to it. Then we'll need some nori. Now, nori is seaweed sheets. You've probably seen sushi wrapped in this seaweed. And I recommend it. It comes in a lot of different brands, but I recommend that you buy one that's already been roasted or toasted. It'll say roasted or toasted on the package, okay? Now, if you can't find the kind that's already been toasted, you can toast it yourself. What you do is you take a frying pan, a skillet, a saute pan, get it hot, dry, no oil, just a dry pan, get it hot, and then put the sheets, you cut them to the size you want. I wanted about 4 to 6 inches square, 5 to 6 inches square. Cut the sheets in the size you want, and put them down in the pan and watch them. They'll start out being purplish green, and as the color changes to more of a medium green, they're toasted, they're done. Why do you toast them? It deepens the flavor, and it also tenderizes the nori sheets. Okay, we're going to be using those for plating. It's mostly for appearance, okay? But people can eat them, and it does add taste as well. And then we will need to have the zest of 1 lemon. Okay, that's all of the ingredients. We'll break, come back, I'll show you the equipment for lesson 61. Okay, for lesson 61, we're going to need a cutting board and a chef's knife. We'll need a paring knife. We're going to use this to try to remove the ribs and some of the seeds from the peppers after we have partially roasted them. We need to have a spatula, a rubber spatula that is, a spoon for plating at the end. We need a box grater to grate that fontina cheese. Now, I am using the small holes on the end here to grate, or I should say to shred the cheese pretty finely. But remember, I chopped it after I shredded it, so it's pretty finely chopped so it can go through the pastry bag. Microplane grater to zest the lemon. We'll need a mixing bowl and a rubber spoon. We're going to be mixing the cheese in here, so we need just a kind of a small bowl. enough to hold your cheese, right? We'll need to have a sizzle plate or a sheet pan to roast the peppers. Now, why do I give you a choice? Okay, because tonight I'm doing only 4. If you're doing enough that can fit on the sizzle plate, use a sizzle plate. But if you're doing 12, you'll probably need something larger, so use a sheet pan or a half sheet pan. Then we're going to need a pastry bag, also known as a piping bag. Actually, I don't hear the term piping bag too much anymore, but when I was first learning, I learned it was a piping bag. Today, I hear pastry bag. But if you don't have a pastry bag, you can use a Ziploc bag. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to put the cheese into this bag, and we're going to then make kind of a pastry bag out of it. We're going to use a pair of kitchen shears to cut the tip off so we can then pipe the cheese into the peppers. And it's also important to have that cheese at room temperature. If it's too cold, you're not going to be able to push it through this bag. It's got to be room temperature. Then we'll also need to have a saute pan, and then we'll just need some plates, and we'll choose those later. So we'll break, come back, and start cooking. Okay, the first thing on our prep list is to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Okay, the next thing on our prep list is to mix the cheeses, the onion, and the garlic. So we have here the chevre, the goat cheese, the fontina, the red onion, and the garlic. And we want to mix that really well. And again, you want it to be room temperature, because it'll make it easier to get it through the pastry bag. All right, the next thing we want to do is toss these peppers in a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I'm using a sizzle plate because I'm only doing 4 peppers right now. But remember, if you're doing 12, for which would be for 6 people, you would need to use a larger pan. Also, you know, I want to get some oil around on this sizzle plate so it's easier to clean later on. So we're just going to toss those a little bit, separate them a bit. There we go. Now we want to take these peppers and put them in the oven, roast them for 20 minutes. All right, the next thing we want to do is to put this cheese mixture into the pastry bag. In this case, we're using a Ziploc bag. By the way, the Ziploc bag, you should probably use a freezer bag rather than a regular one because they're heavier. Also, the amount of cheese that I called for, you know, should be right, but you know, when you look at the amount of peppers that you have, if you think, oh, that's not enough cheese, use more. Okay, so you want to make sure you have enough to fill those peppers. Okay, now then you're going to just take the cheese out of the bowl with the rubber spatula, put it in to this bag, right? And then I want to make sure we get it all. I hate to waste anything. And once it's all in the bag, we want to squeeze it down into a corner. Okay, get the air out of there. You want to squeeze all that cheese down into a corner of the bag. And then twist the bag a little bit. And there you have a nice little pastry bag. Now what we're going to do when we're ready is we're going to cut the tip off of this, and then the cheese is going to come through the hole in the corner of the bag. Okay, the peppers have been roasting about 20 minutes. You can see they're just starting to get a little bit of blistering, and that is exactly what we want. Okay, now what we're going to let these do is cool until they're cool to the touch. Okay? All right, now we're going to saute the mushrooms. I've already gotten the oil in the pan hot. Okay, we're going to add the mushrooms. Add some salt, some pepper, Now mushrooms, as we've talked about in prior lessons, they will immediately absorb all of the oil in the pan and they will look dry. But as they start to cook, they'll start to release some of that oil back into the pan and they'll start to glisten. So our mushrooms are taking on some color. We're going to let them go a bit longer. When they are getting close to being done, they will chirp when you press them into the pan. They're just starting to make a little chirping sound now, but not quite chirping the way I want them to yet. Now let's see if we're getting a little chirping. I don't know if you can hear that. A little chirping sound. Now what I want to do is kind of make a little area in the middle here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, and then I'm going to add the shallots and the ginger into that olive oil, and I'm going to let them sweat in there for just a little bit. Try to get them well coated with the oil. I want to make sure that they don't burn. All right, let's mix them up a little bit. Let it cook for about 30 seconds, stirring it around. Okay, so now we want to deglaze with the Canton. Now the description calls for about 1/3 of a cup, which is what you would use if you were making the full amount. I'm making a little less tonight, so I'm not going to use that much. And I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, you can measure it when you do it, or you can eyeball it, okay? We're going to stir it up, get it all coated, and then just let that reduce a little bit until it is almost dry. Now I didn't use that much, so it's not going to take long to do that. So we want it to be almost dry or just wet. Okay, these are looking good. We're just going to keep these warm until we're ready to plate. Okay, now we want to fill the peppers. First thing we're going to do is cut the tops off of these peppers. And, you know, I don't want to lose any of the peppers, so I'm trying to cut the top off as close to the stem as I can. And then I want to try to take out some of the seeds. Now, you know, it's hard to reach down in there and get them all, but we can get out some of the seeds and the stems. In fact, I don't want them on the plate here, so let's take them off onto the board. And do the same thing with this one and the other two. Okay, now if you leave a few seeds in there, it's not a big deal. Just try to get the bulk of them out. Okay, so now we're going to cut the tip off of this, our improvised piping bag or pastry bag. And you know, you don't want the opening to be too large. You know, probably about 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch across. If it's too small, you'll have trouble getting the cheese through there because of the shallots and the garlic that are in there. Okay, then you just want to press and fill up these peppers. Okay, now that looks good. And you know, the peppers, you got to be careful with them because they might split a little bit. You can see this one has split a little bit. The others haven't, and I'm trying to get the cheese down in there as far as I could. This one has split a little bit too. And okay, now what we want to do is put these back into the oven until they're looking a little melty. Okay, so you're going to have to take a look at that. It's probably going to take about 5 minutes. So I'm going to put them in for 3 minutes. I'll check them in 3 and see how they look, but it's probably going to take 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, here are our peppers. The cheese is looking nice and melty. Okay, we're just going to keep that warm for a moment. And now we're going to plate up the, we already have the plates with the nori sheets on them, right? Now we're going to take the mushroom ragu and put that, mound that right in the middle of the nori sheets. Okay, now I'm going to take our peppers and put 2 peppers on each mound of mushrooms, arranged artfully. Since we have a yellow pepper and a red pepper, we're going to put one of each on each plate. Good. Now we want to give a little twist of pepper, just a little bit. Get them centered in the plates, make it look good, okay? Then just a dusting of lemon zest. And there we have it, the conclusion of lesson 61, roasted stuffed mini peppers with ginger mushroom ragu. You can see photos of the final dish at my Instagram, which is @ChefsApprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Next up is sweet and sour umeboshi chicken balls with chili garlic aioli. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.